Hey everybody, Mrs. Hopkins here, and today we're going to learn how to do printmaking at home with some of the items that you guys have around your house. So one of the things that I was trying to think of when we were doing this distance learning was, what can my students use that they have at home to make some really cool art projects? So one thing I thought of was printmaking, and specifically marker printmaking. If you guys have markers that are the washable kind, I'm not talking Sharpies, I need them to be water-based. So washable is what we have to use for this. That is one thing you're gonna need. And you're gonna need something to carve into. One of the things that I found at our house is we had these foam plates left over from an art project. They need to be foam because you have to be able to carve into the surface. And we're gonna be using a pen to do that. I also found this foam to-go tray that I could use to carve into. This one's gonna require a little bit of cutting because I'm gonna need to get a nice flat surface. So I'll probably be using this part of that tray. So for marker prints, you'll need the markers. You'll need some kind of foam material that you can carve into. Maybe it's styrofoam or more like a foam like this to-go tray. You're gonna need some scissors in case you have to cut some parts out to get a flat surface. Like even on my plate, I have this nice big flat surface here. If I wanted to share this with somebody, maybe I'd cut it in two or cut it into some smaller pieces to make sure that I could do multiple prints. The other thing besides scissors and markers, you're gonna need a pen. You heard me talk about that, okay? I like to use a ballpoint pen. It's the perfect surface to carve, and I like to use a color that's gonna show up on my carving surface. So some of you might have foam, but maybe it's black. So it might be a little bit harder to see, but you could still use that. The last thing that's really important is a sponge. And this sponge already has water in it. It's a damp sponge, so it's not dripping. When I hold this up, it's not going to squeeze water everywhere. I just got it wet at the sink, and it's got enough water in it so it's damp. So it feels cool, but you don't want it to be dripping everywhere. Okay, and I just have a plain piece of paper right here. Plain whatever paper you got, lined paper, computer paper, newspaper, anything that you'll be able to make a mark on will work for this, okay? And so I have a surface on my table prepped because I don't want to get marker all over my table, so I have it covered up with a leftover piece of cardboard from a cereal box, and I've taped it down so it looks really nice and even, and my arms aren't going to bump it around. And I think we're going to go ahead and get started with our marker printmaking. Your objective for this lesson is I can create a print using foam and markers, okay? So by the end of our lesson, you're going to be a printmaking expert. You're going to be able to carve designs, add color, and make prints of those on different papers. So I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully you've collected your materials. Maybe you've got some foam to-go trays or maybe a foam plate. You should have some kind of washable marker in order to do this with color. You can't use a Sharpie for this. If you need to cut some of your foam out, make sure you've got some scissors. To carve into your foam, we're gonna use a pen. If you have a pen, that would be great. You could also use a pencil, but make sure it's not too sharp or you're gonna have holes poked in your surface. We don't want a holy foam. That will not be something you'll be happy with. And I also have a wet sponge here. It's not super wet, it's just damp. We're gonna go ahead and go over our objective, but before we do that, notice that I have covered my table area. This is just a cereal box that I opened up and flattened out, so it's gonna protect my table from any mess that I get, because we definitely wanna do that. So here's our objective here. It says I can create a print using foam and markers. And so that's what we're gonna do. So the first things you're gonna be needing is you're gonna need your carving tool. You'll probably need some scissors, and you're gonna need whatever foam you're gonna use. And I'm gonna start out with this box here. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna separate it. And I'm going to be cutting away. I want this area here to be the part that I'm using. So I'm gonna try to cut out and get a nice big flat surface that I can carve some designs into. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do. So now I have my piece of foam ready for my design. And now this is a piece I've picked that is completely flat on both sides. It's a little bit small, but it's not a big deal because the paper that I have to work with is a little bit small too. So it's just a little bit bigger than my paper, and that's actually cool because I can do a couple different prints on my paper that I have here today. So I'm going to put that off to the side and just focus on my carving now. So it's up to you. You could carve whatever you want into your print, into your block to make your print. I'm going to use a pen, and I'm going to do something that we've done in first grade before. I'm going to do some line designs. So I'm looking at this shape here. What shape would you say that is? I hope nobody said circle. If you said rectangle, awesome. You are the winner today. It is a rectangle, and it's a geometric shape, so that means that it's really easy for us to divide this up into lines and parts. And so I'm gonna do line designs with this. Now, you can do whatever you want, but keep in mind, anything that you carve into is actually gonna come out backwards when we make a print. So if you are planning on doing letters, any letters that you carve in, they're gonna come out backwards when you make your print. So I'm gonna keep it simple and just do line designs and symbols. So as I'm carving, I'm careful not to press too hard into the foam. And remember, this is a piece of foam that I just had from like a leftover to-go container. And so it's not really made for what I'm doing, but as an artist, we gotta work with what we got. So that's what your challenge is at home. You know, what can you use around your house? I think I'll definitely add some circles up in this space here. Maybe like a half circle over here. And then maybe another little plus sign here. Now that's just getting started. I'm gonna work my design all the way down this piece of foam, and I'm gonna have different lines, patterned lines, dotted lines, zigzag lines, anything that you would like. But your line should probably go, if you're going along with me, from one side to the other. If they're not straight, if they start going down, that's okay too. But whatever you do, whatever you're carving into, remember that is permanent, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this in, and then I'll speed up that video so you're not stuck there waiting for too long. Okay, so now I want you to see, when you put your finger on top of your carving, can you feel where the pen has made marks into the foam? When you close your eyes, you should be able to feel all of that. if you can't feel those marks, if they didn't go very deep, you might want to go over them again because when we put our color on here, you won't see your design show up if you did not go deep enough, okay? So now it's time for those markers that we talked about. And I'm just using these washable markers that I have at home. And you're gonna need your sponge soon. So this is a damp sponge. It's not dripping wet and it's not dry. It's in between. And I just have a plain piece of paper here. So those are gonna be the next things that we're using for this part. So I'm gonna use whatever colors you want. You could give yourself a challenge. You could just do just the warm colors. You could do just the cool colors over here with your blue, greens, or purple. Mine are trying to run away. So I'm thinking I'm gonna use all of them. And maybe my challenge today is, can I put them in order of Roy G. Biv? Now I am missing one color. I'm missing my indigo because I don't really have that indigo color because this one's blue, this one's violet, but I don't have an indigo, but that's okay. We can still put them in order. We'll just have to leave one of them out. So if I'm doing that, I guess my first color should be what? For Roy G. Biv? Red. That is correct. So you're just gonna take your marker, whatever color you're using. If you're doing a rainbow Roy G. Biv pattern like me, then you're starting with red. And I'm gonna go all the way to about this space because I wanna make sure that I leave enough space on this foam for all of my colors. Now, when you're using markers, remember we're using these art supplies safely. You wanna keep your markers nice and fresh for all the future art projects we do, so make sure you click those markers shut. Okay, you'll thank me later, or you can thank me now. So I'm gonna go on to my orange. It's my next one. And I'm just staying within the borders that I created with my lines. And I know my next color comes after orange. Just try to make sure most of your foam is covered. If you're working with a darker colored foam, like I know some restaurants, if you had a takeout container, they're not all white like this one from Applebee's. Some of them are black, so this still works. You just won't be able to see really what color you used. I should be using yellow next, right? Yellow would definitely be tricky to see on one of those dark foams. When you get about halfway done, halfway down your design, if you're using 6 colors, I only have 3 left because I've already used 1, 2, 3. And then I have my green here. So here I have my foam covered 100%. I have to be super careful though because my fingers can transfer the color very easy. I could get orange in my finger if I'm touching this in the orange space. And I want to keep all of that marker ink right on the foam because I don't want to transfer it until it's time to get it onto my printing paper. And there's one way to do this. It's not just taking this and stamping it on. That's not going to give you the success that you want. To do this, you have to get this paper wet, and that's where your damp sponge comes in, okay? Now, this is a clean sponge. I've made sure it's pretty clean. This is something that I didn't just do the dishes with, okay? I wasn't scrubbing out my lasagna dish with this sponge. So it's nice and clean. I'm going to slide this over, and wherever I'm going to be putting mine, I'm going to try to put mine like maybe, let's see, it's not going to quite fit there, so I'm going to go vertical with mine. Wherever I know it's going to be, I'm just going to slide the sponge on. Now, depending on your paper, you don't want to get the paper too wet. But I made sure my area was big enough where my foam would fit on, okay? So I know where the water is right here. Okay. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. This area is wet. I need to put the wet side right on top of my print. And you're gonna use your hands and you're gonna smooth it down. Okay? If you wanna use a marker, you could roll it on, okay, if you're afraid of ripping the paper, but you want nice, even pressure. And then you're gonna do a quick little check. And I'm just going to keep my hand right here. I'm gonna start pulling it up. And I'm seeing I'm getting some color transfer, but I want to press a little bit harder right here on the side. It's important that you don't move the paper too much. Oh, I'm getting a pretty good print. Okay, let's check this side. Check this side. All right, you ready for the big reveal? All right, I'm going ahead to flip it over. And here is my marker print right here. And you can see that there's still a little bit of color left on this. I could try to do another print with another wet piece of paper. But for me, I would clean this off. And it's easy. You can just take it right over to your sink and clean it off with some water. And you could use this all day long until this thing falls apart. You can make the same designs, any colors you want, on whatever paper you want. And so boys and girls, that's how you do a marker print. So I hope that you guys found this lesson interesting. And remember, you can do anything you want into the foam. It does not have to be line designs. You could do a self-portrait. You could challenge yourself and try to write me some words. If you're really good at writing backwards, I suppose, it might be a little bit tricky. Or you could do some rainbow prints, kind of like what I did, and use the colors that you have. And remember, they do have to be that washable marker, okay? So that is the key there. You do need those. I hope you guys enjoyed printmaking. And, you know, if you've gone through the whole thing with me, you mastered your objective. I can create a print using foam and markers. Yes, you can. There's a lot that you guys can do from home. So save your foam. You never know what kind of cool printmaking projects you can do. We have a lot more coming down the line. We're gonna do some dish soap bubble printing. I'm gonna try to get that video put together at some point today. And then maybe some floating chalk water printmaking. So maybe that'll be something I take you outside in my crazy backyard and we get to see that later. So boys and girls, I miss you. I hope you're doing well. And I cannot wait to see you when we're all back together. Bye.